Yeah, g'day, FV360 fans. It's your old mate Big Jag and Jason Fletcher, and today we've got the privilege of talking to Foxtel Main Events TV's voice of Australian boxing, Ben Damon. G'day, Ben. Thanks for joining us here again today, mate.
Yeah, no problems at all, Jason. Always good to chat, mate. An extremely busy time in Australian boxing. We've got 4 shows coming up in the space of 24 days, a couple of big pay-per-view events and some of the other big names in Australian boxing as well. So it's a huge time in Australian domestic boxing.
Mate, it is, and I'm absolutely looking forward to it. I mean, we haven't seen too many shows of this calibre in such a short amount of time, have we? So, can you remember a time when there's been so many big shows in such a small space of time?
In terms of domestic televised boxing, this would be the busiest period in the history of the sport, you'd have to think, because we've got these 4 televised shows, 2 pay-per-views, 2 Fox Sports shows, all within 24 days. So it's a remarkable period. Places a lot of strain on the broadcaster, the crew, and Fox Sports, obviously, to get around to all these places and to get this done. But in a boxing sense, it's very exciting. We had to see all this quality action. We get to really take advantage of all the good things that have been happening in the sport in recent years and show people just how good Australian boxing is and how good these shows can be. A bit of travel involved too. We're going from Newcastle to the Gold Coast to Wollongong and then to Canberra. So no internationals at the moment, no overseas trips, but plenty of driving up freeways and short flights.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. So let's go through the shows. So first and foremost, we've got the biggest, probably the most anticipated fight of the year between Tszyu and Dennis Hogan. That's going to be on March 31st at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre. That's going to be an absolute cracking show. And to add a bit more flair to it, we've got 2 returning legends in Sapio, Binker versus Sam Solomon going for a third run around the ring. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's a really exciting fight between Tszyu and Sam Solomon. They've fought twice before. It's one apiece at the moment. The last time that they fought, it was in the semi-final of the Contender in the USA. Tszyu won that fight. He went on to win the Contender as well against Jadon Codrington in one of the best fights that I've ever seen. We get to see these two have another go at it. They've both won world titles, legitimate world titles during their outstanding careers. They're now both in their 40s, so a couple of veterans going toe-to-toe. But the main event is so very exciting there with Tszyu, 17-0 at the moment and improving all the time, and he faces his toughest test yet against Dennis Hogan, who's fought for 2 legitimate world titles, an interim belt as well, and has a really tricky style, and will make Tim try and find out some bits and pieces about himself that he won't have had to look for before, because Dennis Hogan is a world-class boxer. We saw that against Jaime Munguia when he was robbed in Mexico for the WBO super welterweight belt. Tim is now closing in on an attempt to win that belt, but he'll have to get past Hogan to do so, and that is no mean feat. He's only been beaten by the very best in the world, so a really, really good step up for Tszyu and a really interesting test.
Absolutely, and the rest of that card is looking solid. I mean, my hat goes off to Matty Rose. He puts on an absolutely solid event each and every time. I mean, he really does a fantastic job. He's got Paul Fleming versus Tyson Landry. Wade Ryan's coming back. Caesar Temper versus Reynold Quinlan. I mean, these are all top quality boxers. These are guys that, you know, are at the peak of their game on domestic level, and it's absolutely fantastic that he's got all these guys in one show. I mean, hats off to him. He does a brilliant show each and every time.
Yeah, we place a great deal of emphasis on the undercards on the no limit shows, that's for sure. And in the matchmaking process, we do try and make the best fights that are available out there. And once again, a really strong show, this one. You mentioned Matteo Tapia is fighting Reynold Quinlan to open the broadcast. Tszyu and Sam Solomon. Tyson Landry is trying to repeat his upset. He takes on Paul Fleming, who's undefeated and always so exciting. Wade Ryan and Kyle Mazudia as well is sure to be a really, really entertaining fight. And then the main event with Dennis Hogan, Tszyu. So another outstanding card, and you can see it from 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time on main event pay-per-view, and there's a pre-show, a few fights before it as well on Fox Sports from 6 p.m. So big night of boxing. Looking forward to calling all the action.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we move on to the Justice Huni card up in the Gold Coast on April 10. That's the next one you guys are going to be involved in. Hang on. Is that correct? April 10, or is it?
Yeah, that's correct. April 10, so that'll be a Saturday night on the Gold Coast. Justice Huni returns after some concussion issues that he had. He takes on Jack Maris, who's undefeated in 2 fights. Really good to see Justice Huni coming back, and important to see how he does return after some concerns over him with that concussion. But they say that he's passed every possible test. He's A-OK, and we look forward to seeing him get back in against Maris, who obviously he should beat rather comprehensively, but he has had a couple of tough outings already in his career, and now he comes back into a fight like this with Maris to see exactly where he's at post-injury. A good undercard there as well. Some really nice fights through it. So, that'll be a big show on the Gold Coast. It'll be the 10th of April, a Saturday night, and it'll be live on Fox Sports.
Exactly. There's 2 Australian titles on that. There's Ben Kite versus Andrew Hunt. I'm really looking forward to that one. Connor Wallace has taken on Letty. Is that how you pronounce his name? Letty.
Letty. Yep. That's an interesting fight for Letty, who was campaigning at super middleweight, went down, intended to go down to middleweight, but now he's finding himself fighting for the Australian light heavyweight title. So, good fight, that one. You mentioned the other fight, and good to see Andrew Hunt in a really good fight. He's a very entertaining fighter, extremely talented, and he will have his work cut out as well against Ben Kite, who has the Australian welterweight title. There's some other good names on that show as well. Ben Marnie and Chris George, they fight against each other. We saw Chris George win a Commonwealth title at a point, and he walked away from the sport, but he's back and he's taking on the undefeated Ben Marnie, so that'll be interesting. And Sam Goodman, Dana Coolwell, Ethan Law, those sorts of guys are on the undercard as well. So a good show on the Gold Coast. You'll see it on Fox Sports.
That's right. Now, the next morning, am I correct, is Fox Sports showing the Ebony Bridges Shannon Courteney fight? Is it from 4 a.m. the next morning? Is that correct? Did I read that tweet correctly?
Yeah, we picked that one up. So Ebony Bridges fighting for the WBA bantamweight world title for the females. A huge opportunity for her. She's undefeated at the moment. She had a fight just last week in Sydney. It had already been established to her that if she could win that fight, she would get this world title fight. So there was plenty of pressure on her taking on Carol Earl on one of Paul Nazari's shows at Bankstown. She did the business there, and immediately Eddie Hearn and the team at Matchroom were on the phone to confirm that the fight was done. So she'll be fighting for the world title against Shannon Courteney. Really interesting fight that. It's on the undercard of Conor Benn's fight against Samuel Vargas. So, it'll be early in the morning, and it's just after the change of daylight savings as well. So it's a little bit earlier, but it's worth getting up for because we get to see an Aussie in a world title fight, and it'll just be massive for Ebony Bridges if she can win that fight. And the main event's a good one too. Conor Benn is getting better and better. Spent a bit of time with his father, Nigel Benn, last week. He lives in Australia, the British boxing legend, and he's very excited about this fight and about what's ahead for Conor Benn. He's predicting a knockout as well against Samuel Vargas, which would be a statement victory for Conor Benn. Yeah,
I saw Conor Benn's last fight. He's a tough little cookie, that fella. I think was his last a unanimous decision, 10 rounds, or did he get the knockout? I did see it, and he was pretty impressive.
He fought against Sebastian Formula, and it was the best performance so far. Formula had gone the distance with Sean Porter. Conor Benn, he's someone who likes to engage. He doesn't mind taking a few shots, and obviously coming from Nigel Benn and the style that he brought into his fighting, it's no surprise that he's happy to get hit a bit to give a few back. He's always going to be in entertaining fights. He went the distance against Formella, but he won just about every round on all 3 judges' cards. I think it was 99-91 times 2 and 99-92 times 1. A quality performance against someone who presented the toughest test for him so far, and it's just 24 years of age. He's getting better and better. Now he has to step up again against Samuel Vargas, and it's sure to be an entertaining fight. Another really good card from Matchroom, which you'll see on Fox Sports in the early hours of the Sunday morning.
Yeah, I really hope that Ebony gets up, because if it does, that'll blow the female demographic apart, because the best female fighters in the country float around that 118 demographic. We've got Shannon O'Connell, who just fought Shanika Johnson for the gold version of the WBA title. Susie Ramadan is also a former bantamweight title. If she brings that title home, there's going to be few huge potential Aussie girl fights. I hope she does, because it's going to be fantastic.
Would be the potential. I believe she has a deal in place with Matchroom for her next fight, regardless.
Rachel Ball?
So likelihood she'll be defending her belt
Yeah.
in the UK on a Matchroom show, should she win this fight. And even if she were to lose the fight, I think her next fight will be on a Matchroom show. But yeah, you're right. There's plenty of contenders in that weight division in Australia, so it'd be fantastic to see one of them get into the opposite corner against the defending champion, Ebony Bridges, if she can get through that fight.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to the next one, and the one that I'm probably looking forward to as the grudge match, or the slobber knocker that we're looking forward to by a wrestling term, Paul Gallen versus Lucas Browne. That's going to be a battle of the big boys. You must be excited for that one.
Yeah, really excited for that one. A lot of talk in the build up to this. I sat down with the pair of them a couple of weeks ago and did a face-off piece, which you'll see, in fact, immediately after the Tszyu Hogan broadcast. So stick around after that broadcast to have a look at the two big men sitting down and going at each other. Of half an hour with me in between them. They don't like each other one bit. They're obviously from very different places in a boxing sense. Paul Gallen, a superstar rugby league player who switched over to boxing and has just improved so much in each of his fights. He took on Mark Hunt last time around. Plenty thought he was going to get knocked out, and he very nearly did, but he regathered, he regained his composure after being rocked in round 2, and he won the fight pretty clearly. So an outstanding victory for a man who remains undefeated. He's had 11 fights, 10 wins and 1 draw. He takes on Lucas Browne, though, this time around. He's maybe the biggest puncher in the history of Australian boxing. He's a man who won a version of the heavyweight world title. He beat Rustam Shigaev in Grozny and Chechnya, had to climb off the canvas to do so, and produced a massive run to turn the tide against Shigaev, and then produced about 35 more right hands to stop him. He's 29-2. He's got 25 stoppage victories, and he certainly can punch. He's Lucas Browne, but the power has not gone away. He's looking to raise Paul Gallen and give him his first ever defeat. But if Gallen can get through a former world champion, then people really do have to start taking. He should be already, really, after what he's done. But he's getting better and better, and that's a really exciting fight. You'll see that as the main event. On main event, Wednesday, the 21st of April, live from Wollongong.
Yeah, that's going to be a fantastic event. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just going to see how well Paul Gallen can take a punch, because he took a punch from Mark Hunt, and Mark Hunt is no slouch. But Lucas Browne's a bit more of obviously a more rounded boxer than what Mark Hunt was. UFC and boxing are two completely different sports, but I'm really looking forward to that one. And the wow factor is that these are two guys that aren't going to muck around. I mean, it's not going to be a finesse fight. It's going to be in there, and they're probably going to try and take each other's heads off pretty fast. So
yeah, well, there's no reason for anyone to try and box in this one because it's only 6 rounds. Lucas Browne, potentially, if it was a 10-round fight, he could have worked his way into this fight before he tries to look for his power shot. But with 6 rounds to get the job done, he'll go out there and be swinging from the opening bell. So there's going to be fireworks. It's a hugely entertaining-looking fight. They're going to build it up. I can't wait to host the press conference and the weigh-in on the Monday and the Tuesday of that week, and they will be going at each other, no doubt at all, because it's a real genuine dislike that's emerged between these two. It helps for the promotion, and when they get in there, they are going to try and knock each other out. So really excited for that fight between Paul Gallen and Lucas Browne, a massive heavyweight contest when we haven't seen too many big fights at heavyweight as pay-per-views in Australia. Domestic shootouts in recent times, so this is a good one to get us going in that regard.
Oh, absolutely. And the undercard's looking solid again. We've got names returning, such as Jack Brubacher's on the card. Who else? I'm just bringing it up. Who else is on the card?
Yeah, well, Liam Wilson against Francis Tura is the co-main. So Liam Wilson improving each and every time. He's freakishly talented, Liam Wilson. 8-0 now. Produced the knockout of the year in Australian boxing last year with a left hook that rang around the world, knocking out Jesus Quadro. Francis Tura, the removalist, best known for his massive upset against Kai McKenzie on the Jeff Horn Anthony Mondine undercard when Kai McKenzie was next in line to fight against Vasyl Lomachenko, and Tura beat him on points in one of the biggest upsets we've ever seen.
I reported on that. I remember that. Yeah, that was huge. So
it was an enormous shock. And Kai McKenzie, he goes around on this card as well. He's got a tough fight ahead of him. Bruno Turimo, Was probably unlucky against Paul Fleming last time out at the Sydney Super Show in December at Bankwest Stadium, because he did look to be getting the ascendancy in that fight when Paul Fleming was cut. So they got away with that one, the Fleming camp, and now he goes in against Kai McKenzie, and he'll be doing what he does every time, Bruno Tarimo, just powering forward and throwing as many punches as he possibly can. I saw Kai McKenzie sparring against Brock Jarvis yesterday, and he's only at the start of his preparation. He did box well, and he'll have to really dig deep through this preparation to go up against Bruno Tarimo, who's always so very, very fit. You mentioned Jack Brubacher. I saw him sparring as well yesterday. He looked a completely different boxer, to be honest. He had a lot more in his kit bag. He was punching the body, moving really nicely, and did look good in sparring. And he takes on Steve Spark, who has been improving significantly, fighting up there in Queensland, and he's one to really look out for. He's one that we've tried to get into a couple of entertaining-looking fights with the likes of Ty Telford and Dara Foley, but now Steve Spark gets in there with probably the most entertaining fighter in the country, and Jack Brubacher, a man who previously hasn't minded taking half a dozen shots to give you back 8, but now with Jeff Fennick in his corner and starting to work a bit of his magic, he's starting to turn him into a little more of a boxer, so interesting to see how that fight goes. And Lenny Zapavinha's back as well. He's been one of the more entertaining sluggers in recent Australian boxing, and he takes on Danny Kennedy in a really good fight that'll be part of the pay-per-view as well.
Yeah, I remember, I just reading about that. I remember seeing Lenny Zappa coming back, a former IBO lightweight champion, so it'd be good to see a former champion back in the ring after at least a couple of years out, hasn't he? 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, he's been out for a little while. He had that incredible fight with Alex Saucedo, which I think would have been 2018, produced the round of the year in world boxing in that fight. And eventually he was stopped, but only because his face started to give way, to be perfectly honest. He took so many shots, and he gave so many back, and very nearly had Saucedo beaten in that fight. Saucedo was something like 27-0 going into the bout, so it would have been a massive upset for Zapavinha, but he is just an animal. He has been throughout his magnificent career, 41 fights he's had so far, and a really talented, tough guy, and it's exciting to see him back in the ring. And after a couple of years out, we'll just have to see how he goes against Danny Kennedy. Not a renowned puncher, but a very good boxer. So an interesting clash of styles as well in that one.
Absolutely. And then to wrap it up, Brock Jarvis returns to Canberra. Is that correct? Brock Jarvis is on?
Brock Jarvis making a bit of a name for himself in Canberra. He was outstanding in December fighting in Canberra against Mark Schliebs. Got the performance of the year in Australian boxing, and was just absolutely brutal, punching to the body and dismantling Schliebs in 5 rounds. They really enjoyed seeing him in Canberra. They sold it out, and there was a really big buzz around the place as well. With Jeff Fennick in town, there always is. He's such a big personality, and he trains Brock Jarvis. And Jarvis put on an outstanding performance, so they were so excited to get him back. And they've got him back to fight against Noor Beauchamp from New Zealand, someone who has a really handy record and has given a lot of quality fighters a lot of trouble. He's a tricky southpaw. He moves very slickly. He's really cagey and doesn't engage when you want to, but he'll make you fight if he does. He went the distance with Conor McKenzie. He beat Joel Brunker. He's beaten a few other Aussie fighters as well, so it's someone that Fennick is very wary of, but as I said, I did watch Brock Jarvis sparring against Kai McKenzie yesterday, and he did look outstanding. He seems to have gone to another level. He's an absolute excitement machine, Brock Jarvis. He's only a kid, but he has the boxing world at his feet, currently ranked at number 7 in the world. Victory here could put him up into the top 4 and maybe straight into a world title eliminator. So for a 23-year-old who's had just 18 professional fights, he is on a very exciting trajectory.
Absolutely, and I like watching Brock Jarvis, and a lot of people say that he's got that Fennick style, and he does remind me a lot of Jeff when you go back and watch Jeff's tapes. He's very flow of punches. He just never stops punching, just fist of fury, just never stops. He's really incredible to watch, and I hope that kid does go all the way, because you can see that he's got that fire in the belly now. I remember talking to you last, you said he's turned from a boy into a man, that he's moved up to the featherweight. He's filled out. He looks bigger. He looks stronger. He looks more powerful. He's going to give the world lots of troubles, and I hope he goes all the way.
Yeah, if he can keep making the weight at featherweight, then he's going to do enormous things in that division globally. they're pretty confident that he can win world titles right now. But he's got plenty of time. He's only a kid, and his body probably will fill out. He'll have to continue to go up eventually, but if he can do the business at featherweight, it'll be extremely exciting. He's got a lot of Fenech about him. He's got that look. He's got the fighting style. He's probably a bit longer than Fenech in the ring, but he doesn't mind, he actually quite enjoys getting tight, working to the body, and trying to dismantle opponents with his pressure. That's what he did to Mark Schliebs, and but I did note in sparring he's had a few strings to his bow. He's working on a left hook that looked outstanding in sparring, and he's got a lot more variety. So it just couldn't be more exciting. The journey that is imminent for Brock Jarvis.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy month for you. Which one are you looking forward to the most, Ben?
Well, I guess we're just looking forward to getting it started. Next week is the big Tszyu Dennis Hogan event, and once we get into that, we're really rolling. So there's going to be plenty of Ks covered. There's going through them, I guess I'll be calling something in the vicinity of 25 to 30 something fights in the space of that little period there. There's going to be a lot of really, really good ones. Great to see Sapio Binker back. So many false starts for him. He's had opponents pull out for any number of reasons. I was there in Cessnock a few weeks ago when, unfortunately, his fight fell over at the very last minute because of some registration issues. So that was extremely frustrating. But it's great to see him on a major show, televised as well. And couldn't be more excited to see the Scorpion back in action. Then that heavyweight showdown is going to be a massive one for the mainstream audience. And seeing Liam Wilson as the co-main against Francis Tura, who knows what could happen there, but Liam's very confident he gets him out of there, and if he does, that is a big statement victory. And we finish it all off with Brock Jarvis and Jeff Fenech in Canberra, which is, it's just such a great combination, and one that could be around for quite some time. In Australian boxing, the undercard there is good as well. Isaac Hardman against Mark Lucas, Arsene Fosso and Fagoopoulos. So those two both fought against Justice Huni early in his career, and now they face each other. So a good fight at heavyweight there in Canberra as well. But all in all, just an outstanding 24 days of boxing, and that's just in a domestic sense, plenty of internationals as well through that part, and a lot more happening in Australian boxing. It's exciting.
Oh, absolutely. It's absolutely exciting. I can't wait to get into it. So just focusing on the Tszyu Hogan fight, the final press conference will be on Monday. I'm just guessing here.
Final press conference on Monday, 10 a.m. I believe. You'll see that live on various Fox Sports channels and through the Fox Sports and Main Event social media. I'll get it up live on Facebook and the like. And then the weigh-in will be the following day. So we'll weigh in all of the fighters up there in Newcastle, get them all weighed in and start to really build up towards that show. Midday, the weigh-in on the Tuesday. And then, Wednesday, 6 p.m, the coverage starts on Fox Sports before we go over to Main Event at 7 p.m.
I want to put you on the spot a little bit if I can, Ben. Who's your favourite boxer at the moment?
Favourite boxer? Well, I don't know. I don't really have favourite boxers. I just like to support all of the Aussies and see if they can get the best possible promotion they can as they look to these major fights, both here and internationally. It's great to see some of these fighters as they come through and build their name and build their brand here in Australia, and eventually headline a Fox Sports show and then become a main event commodity. There's a few that are on that sort of path at the moment. We've talked about a couple of them. Liam Wilson in a co-main on a big show coming up shortly. We saw Tszyu essentially playing second fiddle to Paul Gallen for a while, then he overtook, and now he is a big pay-per-view headliner himself. Brock Jarvis is another one heading that way, Justice Huni as well. So there's a really exciting journey for a lot of those guys, but I just like any Aussie fighter who's having a good crack, and there's plenty of them doing it at the moment.
Yeah, just on that, Paul, I have to say, full credit to Paul Gallen, because I watched watched the press conference the other day between him and Lucas Browne, and when he said that he was obviously doing it for the money, but he was doing it to promote the younger fellas on the undercards so they get the exposure. I thought, you've got to tip your hat to the man, because that is fantastic. I mean, yeah, okay, he's doing it because he's getting paid, but he's doing it to get exposure to the young fellas like he did with Tszyu, so people can play second fiddle with him and then move on to their own pay-per-views. And I think that's fantastic for Paul Gallen to do.
Yeah, well, that's what we did with Tszyu. Brought him through on the back of Paul Gallen and then launched him. And he has taken off. And Liam Wilson's the next one they're trying to do that with. He's on this undercard co-main, and then ideally launching into his own Fox Sports headline performance, and ultimately into some major fights as a pay-per-view fighter. So yeah, the system works, why not keep doing it and keep investing the Australian public in these major fights domestically, because they all like getting out and supporting the events. They sell really well tickets-wise, and a lot are buying them on main event pay-per-view, and when they're available via KO as well, and watching via Fox Sports and KO. So it's a really exciting time to be a part of the sport in this country.
It absolutely is. Well, we look forward to seeing you again on the Tszyu Hogan card. Of course, we'll see you on Monday morning at 10 a.m. approximately for the final press conference. Ben Damon, appreciate your time again, mate. We'll love having you here at FV360, and we'll speak to you again soon, mate.
Okay, thank you very much, Jason. Enjoy the fights.